Hi guys, and welcome to It's Positively Lana. Today we are deep diving, so go ahead and grab a beverage, whatever time of day it is, settle in because today we are talking about self-love. And whether you love to hate love or love to love love, we're going to start with a couple foundational things for what's driving this conversation. Also wanted to present my very lovely mug. I love raccoons, and this gift from my lovely partner keeps me grounded. A little bit of love goes a long way these days, especially when we're talking about something so personal. First things first, when we talk about self-love, in this conversation, we are speaking about each individual person being a three-part being. So we're talking spirit, body, and mind. I specifically put those in that order because I think especially like in American society, we do not give enough credit to nourishing the spirit. Even if you look at some of the yoga styles that people do today, I mean this from a purely like observation based situation. We're not talking about that I'm like passing judgment on to this, but I'm just saying like yoga itself, the word yoga means to yoke, like yoking together or bringing together mind, body, and spirit. But things like power yoga or yoga that is really just heavily focused on posture, aka asana practice, if you leave the other two parts out, it's like having a one-legged stool. And I really feel that there is that heavy focus on like conditioning of the body and not of spirit, because bringing those three things together is what gives you that foundation of being a well-rounded or three-legged stool. I don't know why I use stool, but here we are. So now that we have the foundation of spirit, body, and mind, the next part is that whatever we are going through in this world, on this planet, on Earth, we are living in the world of relatives. So if I say something is good or bad, I'm really looking at good or bad in relation to where you as an individual want to go. It's not that it's good or bad like inherently. And I think that that's a lot of the time where we get hung up on saying something is better or worse in a situation. It's really that it comes down or boils down to, if you're trying to make it to Mexico but you are driving to Canada, that is a bad situation. Like, you're not moving any closer to the goal that you are trying to set. So in that case, it would be lacking advantage to continue to drive towards Canada if you were trying to get to Mexico. So if I use good or bad, it's being used in that relative way. I may use the words advantageous and disadvantageous. This is an invitation to start to incorporate a new way of viewing an idea, a theory, even just how you show up in the world. And that is really moving from being deductive and starting to use pluralistic ways of thinking. So my mom will tell you, when people use the word but, one of my favorite phrases is, anything before the but is bullshit. So I try very, very valiantly to not use the word but. However, things like that, because if I'm going to amend what I'm about to say, then I might as well just say the latter part of it. So when that comes to an idea, I use the word and a lot, because in this world, you will find that multiple truths can and are valid in a situation. It's not that it's just this one thing. It's this one thing and this is also true and this is also true. So as we go through talking about love and anything else that comes up on this channel, I do invite you to start looking at how we can start to expand the way that we are looking at things instead of trying to deduce it down even further, because that isn't helping anybody right now. So now that we've established that, it's time to get into the self-love part. In this video, the founding question was, how conditionless is your self-love? And I pointed that question to myself, but also I'm posing that question to you. In this lifetime, there's got to be a bit of introspection here. And it kind of was that waking moment for me of, this is where my conditions are now for my own self-love. But where were they before? And then how did that tie to where I was, how life was, and also, was that the most advantageous for what I needed to do at that time? And is it the most advantageous for where I'm trying to go now? So taking my own personal survey, I would say my own self-love is as conditionless as it can be. And what does conditionless love look like? Especially for the self. Do you give yourself grace? Do you beat yourself up if you don't complete something the way that you intended to do it? Or do you actually give yourself the space to accept what has happened and to be able to move forward from that point? Do you look back on the past a lot? Does the past still bother you? Do you regret? Do you have lingering things you wish you could go back and change? Do you allow yourself to emote fully? Do you let yourself cry? Do you let yourself be angry, jealous, petty? Do you let yourself actually go through the full range of your emotion without passing judgment? Do you not pass judgment on yourself? And then by extension, do you give others the freedom to be themselves without being judgmental? Sit in control, and if you can't control every little thing, does it drive you up a freaking wall? And last but not least, is your self-love based in fear? And we're talking about fear of being lonely, fear of not being good enough, fear of whatever you can come up with an answer for. Because if these are the things that you think about or you come to when you think about yourself, let's start to unravel that. Or I invite you to start to unravel some of those items, because all of these things go into or add up to either having many, many conditions for your own self-love, or having it be as conditionless as you can facilitate at this time for who you are. So this is really, again, moving towards that piece of self that is spiritual, not for the body, and tied to some of the mind, because if you haven't noticed, I definitely use my brain and use energy into intellectual activity, but mainly these questions have come from a heart-centered place, because I wouldn't be able to do this if I wasn't in a heart-centered place. If I were to just come out and say to you that your self-love should be self-centered and selfish, does that make you uncomfortable, or does that make you happy? Or somewhere kind of in between? How do you feel when I say that your self-love should be selfish and that it should be self-centered? I think it gets a really bad rep to be selfish in this day and age, but we're not talking about the part where you only think about yourself at the expense or the cost of others, where you actually put others down to raise yourself back up. That's not the selfish we're talking about here. But we are talking about where you are the center of where your love comes from. Because if you can't give it to yourself, then it makes it very difficult to give it to somebody else. With that being said, if we will do it for ourselves, it makes it possible then to spread that to others, but not at the expense of the self. Am I making sense here? So, my example of this is I had a relationship where I tried to fix somebody else. And this actually was a theme for many, many years of my life. And I finally woke up one day and realized that I was like, oh my gosh, I am sure very, very invested in other people's lives. Hard pill to swallow, but important one to learn. So I started to sit and ruminate on, what if I put all of the energy that I am giving to other people, trying to support them, trying to push them to be a better them, what if I actually just took all of that and turned it around and used it on myself? That is the type of selfish that I'm talking here. And when I did that, transformation, evolution, which everybody's moving towards. That's the whole point of what we're doing here, is evolving further and further into ourselves. Or not. You get the option. That's the whole thing. You got free choice. Do as you please. And in my case, that's definitely the path for me, though, is moving closer and closer to who I am. And that type of selfishness only multiplies and gives more in the long run, because if you have a base that you do not sacrifice for anybody else, no one can devalue you no matter what you do. Heck, like I said in my first introduction video, talking about why I'm even doing this, I'm doing this for me. So if this doesn't hit or resonate with you or whatever it might be, that doesn't make me feel a certain way, because I have that solid foundation. And that's why we are here. So the self-centered part is the same thing. They go together for being self-centered and selfish. And it's really that your universe as an individual should be built there. You can only, well, you can't only. In the grand scheme of things, loving people from your saucer instead of loving them from your cup, like you love them from the overflow, never makes you feel that you are lacking in yourself. And it might sound like I'm about to contradict myself here. Others are the extension of you. So if that seems too difficult, if that is too daunting at this moment, then give what you cannot give to yourself to somebody else, and it'll come back to you. Not saying that you're giving that with the expectation, but if you can't do it for you, then start by doing it for somebody that you do love, and start to see where that can lead. And again, this is the part where I'm saying this is pluralistic, or this is additive and not deductive. So if this is too hard to do for yourself, then start here. And then and move towards doing it for you. Another question that really was a driving force in my own self-development was, do you act or are you being reactive? Like, do you just react to everything that happens to you? And for most of my young adult into early adulthood life, that was definitely a react answer. I was very reactive. And I think the biggest piece that showed me that was when I failed an entire semester of college. Yay! As a 20-year-old at that time, I didn't know how to deal with it at all. And as the semester started, not only did I overload myself with emotional baggage, but then I also took way too many credits. I was gunning for, I think it was at the time, I think I was trying to do like 24 credits or something. I was trying to do 5 classes, just something real crazy. Like, I was like, I can do it. I'll be fine. Well, didn't turn out fine. And I literally stopped living. I was in bed for weeks at a time. I gained a ton of weight. I was definitely very, very depressed. I didn't know what to do. I mean, I just shut down, completely shut down. I ended up, I think, passing like one or two classes, but it didn't matter because with not showing up to the other 3, it just tanked that whole semester. So in that time, sleeping, eating, like the bare basics even seemed laborious for me. And it wasn't like I woke up one day and was like, oh, I'm just going to fix all this stuff. But I did get tired of feeling the way that I did. And what I did make the decision to do was not stay there. It felt like life kept happening to me. And then I did make the decision that I was like, all right, I'm tired of life happening to me. Let's flip this switch and like, let's start creating it for ourselves. So it's a big undertaking, and it was not a linear path back to actually getting to, well, graduate, because I did graduate from college. Thanks. Took me a little extra time. But in that time frame, after I finally like came to terms with the fact that I was very, very, very depressed and barely functioning, that I was going to have to go and confront all of the things that I had been trying to just wish away with not engaging in it. Didn't make it any better. And I still had to do the thing. So, well, not had to, I still chose to do the thing. And the reason I did, because I knew I had run myself so ragged, never dealt with any of my emotional issues, never dealt with any of the grief, any of the tendencies to completely redline myself over and over again and then crash out and be like, why do I feel like garbage? It's because I'm not listening to myself. As I was creating my life anew, how much I had been functioning from this place of helplessness, when in reality I was not a victim of circumstance. I could regain my power. All I had to do was make the decision to do so. So again, the story ends with me graduating from college and really taking that experience as a lesson of what you can accomplish when you start to reevaluate and remember that yourself is not the enemy. And if somebody, like an outside source, is trying to tell you what you need to do for you, to really take that with a grain of salt, because yourself already knows the answer. And I know that that may sound a little strange, but it's true. If somebody from an outside source, even me, like even me talking about this, if you're like, oh, that doesn't sound like me at all, you already know. I hope that this is just a reminder to you, or again, an invitation to start to take that survey or use that introspection for good, and not, and by good I mean to build, and not to sit there and ruminate and do the shoulda, woulda, couldas that make you feel it like less less validated, because this whole channel is built around inviting you to show up for you and to do for you, whatever that may be. So if you use this as a reminder, or if this is new to you, I hope that it gave you a spark. And I know that I'm an outside source, so if this completely turned you off to what we do here, good. I really, really applaud you on the path that you're on, and that you found that this isn't something that works for you. Feel free to bring other topics up or things that you want to see in the comments here. Follow me over at It's Positively Lana on Instagram, and we're gonna tie it all together. We're gonna tie it all together. Again, this is just the first part of the series that goes to the end of February, and let me know what you think. I'm just settling into this experiment, and by experiment I mean this whole project of running YouTube, of bringing my voice forward, because I'm ready to do so. So show me what you got. Thanks for showing up for this one. Show it for yourself. Have a good day, guys.